Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk, and thanks for watching. To all of you who have recently subscribed, thanks for jumping on. And for all the legacy subscribers, love everything that you're doing. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Love to have you as a part of the community. You can also find me on Twitter at Real LA Rams Talk. So, yeah, today is kind of a tough day, dealing with the first loss of the season to the Saints. Tip of the cap to the Saints. There's a lot I'm going to complain about, but at the end of the day, the Saints played really good football. You notice their offensive line was a wall that the Rams couldn't get through. So credit to that. That was one of the strengths of their team, and they proved it. So, I mean, we didn't get any sacks on Drew Brees. They didn't get any sacks on Jared Goff. So there you go. There's that. And they made the plays. And Drew Brees is good. And, as upset as I get when they lose, I quickly think of 2016 and before. And when the Rams were scoring 6 to 12 points a game, it seemed like. And getting a touchdown was like a golden gift, So I try and put things like this in perspective. We lost to a really good team on the road in a game that we could have won. In fact, I think if the Rams play the Saints next weekend, even in New Orleans, I feel like the Rams would have a great shot at taking it. I mean, the Saints in this game got every bounce. Everything went their way, from the interception to the Johnny Hekker blown call by the refs where he got the first down, to the penalties, to kind of everything went the Saints' way. The Saints did beat the Rams in every facet. They beat them in time of possession. They had about 7 minutes more than the Rams had the ball. They had more total yards. They had more total rushing yards. They had more third down conversions. They were 7 for 12 on third down. The Rams were 3 of 8. And that's one area that really I felt killed the Rams, was they just couldn't stop the Saints. So, I mean, if you're looking at the team stats, then you without watching the game, you're like, oh, yeah, the Saints won that game, and they did. And because of all those things that are pretty telling, they really, it came down to what I felt like when they were just driving back, like every time in the first half, that I felt like, does anyone want to cover Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas? Because those were the two guys that were doing everything. In fact, they combined for 327 yards out of the total 487 yards, which comes out to 67%. They accounted for 67% of all of the Saints' offense and yards. And you'd think that they get the memo. Kamara scored 3 touchdowns. Thomas had 1. So you'd think that they'd really get the memo that, like, hey, let's double these guys. Because obviously Marcus Peters isn't cutting it. I mean, Michael Thomas had Michael Thomas alone accounted for 11 first downs, and 5 of those were on Marcus Peters. So, at some point in time, you gotta allocate resources to that. And one thing that I've always really liked about this team, and especially defensively, is that they make really, really good halftime adjustments under Wade Phillips. Going back to the Dallas game last year when they were behind and they came out and just took it to them. And even this year they come out and they make those adjustments. And they did in this game too. They only allowed 10-second half points, and those were in the fourth quarter. And one of those was on a total blown coverage by Marcus Peters. But I think that they need to get to a point where they don't have to depend on those halftime adjustments, and they can make the in-game adjustments. And that's what it's coming down to. Whatever Wade did at the second half, do that between the first and second quarters. I think that's really where you got to do it. You got to do it on the fly, because as we saw last night, it was too little too late. And the Rams did a heck of a job catching up. Jared Goff had a great game, I felt, aside from that touchdown. But, he really was just laser beaming passes to all the receivers. Brandin Cooks had over 100 yards. Woods and Kupp had great games. In fact, between the 3 receivers, none of them averaged fewer than 14 yards per catch. So they're really getting out there. The tight ends were really involved. Even that 2-point conversion to Everett was really nice. Higbee did have that drop in the end zone. But I felt like Goff had a great game. And I was looking at his stats, and so last year he had 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So far this year, through 9 games, he has 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So he could potentially reach, like 38, have 10 more touchdowns than he did last year. That's definitely doable. So just kind of cool to see his progression. And now we go into games, and I'm feeling like really, really good about Jared Goff, and not like, oh, is this just a kind of one-year wonder? But you can see his second year under the McVay offense he's really coming into his own and just throwing a nice, clean, crisp ball. Love what the offensive line did. Todd Gurley balled up. I mean, Todd Gurley, they said they held Todd Gurley in check, but I kind of think that's misleading when you fall behind by, 17, 18 points, or whatever it was. Like, you can't just run the ball back into the game. You got to pass, and second half they were really going pass heavy. And then you look at Malcolm Brown, and Malcolm Brown, he had some snaps in there, but he didn't rush the ball once. He just had that one catch, which was a hell of a catch. And I've been liking Malcolm Brown for a while, and that was the reason why. On the defensive side, I just felt like no one tackled. On the Kamara run, or the pass that he caught, like maybe the first touchdown, he had like 3 guys just totally whiffed or just tried this weak arm tackle. And I really like Corey Littleton. I think played the best out of the linebackers in the secondary. But too many times Mark Barron and Marcus Peters and LaMarcus Joyner were just whiffing. I mean, they just were not tackling. It's just so many things were 101. And then you have, at the end of the game, the Rams weren't disciplined because you had that penalty on Roger Saffold, just stupid bonehead play. Didn't even get to see the replay on what Aaron Donald did. They didn't show that, which kind of pissed me off because, apparently it was legit. But then also the game turned, and everyone knows this, but the game really turned on a dime when the Rams faked the field goal and Johnny Hecker ran it out to the right. And honestly, everyone, except for the refs on the phone to New York, everyone knew it was a first down. Even Pereira, the guy that they had, like the ref that they kind of have on call, he even said it was a first down. So that changed everything. You can trace everything in this game back to that one play. Because even if they don't score a touchdown, if let's say they get that first down, but even if they don't score a touchdown off of that, they have they get at least a field goal and they take the lead. So, I hate harping on the refs. I hate harping on, busted calls by the refs. But that one really sank the Rams in the first half. I mean, yes, they still have to defend. And yes, the Saints were just driving down the field every time. But that really, I think, kind of took the wind out of their sails a bit. So, like I said, tip of the cap to the Saints. Drew Brees was great. The receivers were good. I mean, everyone on the Saints just played a great game, and the Rams, aside from the defense, played a great game. Now, in terms of, what this means for the implications down the road for like home field advantage in the playoffs and everything. So the Saints and the Rams have one more win than the Saints. Both have the same amount of losses. Of course, Saints have the head-to-head, but the Saints play the Bengals, who are 5-3. They play the last 3 games of the year. They play the Panthers, the Steelers, and the Panthers. They also play the Falcons, and they also play the Eagles. So they do have a pretty tough team schedule down the end of the season, where the Rams play Kansas City. I mean, that's really the big game left. I mean, they play Seattle, they play Chicago, but Kansas City, and the Eagles. But I feel like the strength of schedule for the Saints is going to be tougher. So I do like the Rams' chances down the schedule or down the road in terms of scheduling this year. One last thing, Dante Fowler had 44 snaps yesterday. His previous game high was 27 while he was still with Jacksonville, so they got him some good usage. And I think he was creating pressure the whole time. Same with Aaron Donald. They were bringing lots of pressure. They just couldn't get into. They just couldn't convert. The hands were right there, almost getting them. So I look for the Rams to really bounce back at home against the Seahawks next week. I think they take it to them. I think they're pissed off. And, if the Saints, if we meet you in the playoffs, I'd watch out, because I look to the Rams that have home field advantage, and they're not going to hopefully they keep Talib's back by then. Let's just cross our fingers on that. So anyways, that's my thoughts. It's a sunny day here in LA. Things aren't terrible. Unless you're also a Lakers fan, then it's kind of rough everywhere you look. But I feel good about our chances going up against the Seahawks, and we're 8-1, guys. If you've been Rams fans for many years, this is still an awesome feeling. So let's stay positive. Marcus Peters, you can turn it around. And if you haven't subscribed to everyone, please do so there. And I'll have something up for you the next couple days for the game looking ahead. But I really appreciate all the comments and all the discussion and everything out there. Awesome stuff. So like always, everyone, go Rams.